The following day, Xiaoning stood in front of the library lost in thought. Grandfather can be so unreasonable. I don't know what's gotten into him, calling me 3 times a day, urging me to pursue a relationship with Li Shulai, and now he claims that Li Shulai is talented in cultivation. That's as unlikely as a pig climbing a tree. Forcing a smile, she opened the car door and invited Li Shulai to get in. He thanked her politely before settling into the passenger seat, and Xiaoning followed shortly after. As they drove towards her grandfather's residence, she glanced at Li Shulai, who was busy jotting down notes in his notebook. Grandfather insisted that everything that happened before was just a misunderstanding, she recalled. He actually wanted to introduce me to Li Shulai as a prospective partner, but I didn't realize it at the time and dismissed the idea completely. And now look at how I've been judging him. Lately, Xiaoning had begun to notice subtle changes in Li Shulai. Could it be that he's truly different now? He seems more composed, and he looks better too. The thought made her cheeks warm, but she quickly pushed the feeling aside. Am I really letting myself be swayed just because grandfather praised him? Meanwhile, Li Shulai appeared completely absorbed in his own thoughts, paying no attention to her. He was preoccupied with more pressing matters. Yang Fei Long Liu Daxi Du Yu Teng Lin Yan Hong. It's been over a week since I sent the CD and I still haven't heard back from Brother Hong, he reflected. Did something go wrong? Maybe the front desk didn't deliver the CD, otherwise I would have received some word by now. I spent extra time perfecting that program. Based on Yang Fei Long's reaction, I expected him to be astonished and contact me immediately. Still, these are minor concerns, he thought. Even if Brother Hong doesn't respond, I have a contingency plan in place. The path to power is never straightforward, and perhaps that's for the best. Suddenly he looked up, catching Xiaoning off guard. Oh no, has he noticed me staring at him? She panicked, but Li Shulai wasn't focused on her. Instead, he found her startled reaction somewhat puzzling. What's going on with her? Why does she seem so anxious? Xiaoning, noticing his glance, wondered what's with that look. Does he think I'm acting strange? As soon as he returned to his writing, she pondered whether he was still upset about their earlier interactions. Trying to break the silence, she spoke up. Li Shulai, how long are you going to follow me around like this? If you're trying to get my attention by playing hard to get, it's not going to work. Do you realize how much inconvenience this behavior causes others? Li Shulai responded calmly. I'm not trying to get your attention. I've been occupied with more serious matters. Her words lingered in the air as Xiaoning considered his response. Have I been reading too much into everything? A short while later, they arrived at their destination. Xiaoning surveyed the surroundings. We're nearly at the top of the mountain. Yet it's still so isolated. Li Shulai turned to the old man and asked, Aren't we going to Qingyun Temple? Why are we heading into the mountains? The old man chuckled and replied, Those who practice cultivation have their own territories. Only those initiated in cultivation can see them. Without crossing the barrier, the scenery beyond remains invisible. Li Shulai was taken aback, unsure of what the old man meant. But in the next moment, his confusion turned to astonishment as he watched Xiaoning walk through an invisible barrier. When he followed her, passing through the barrier himself, he was greeted by a breathtaking sight, a majestic castle standing before him. Li Shulai was amazed. So this is a territory. It's nothing like the traditional Taoist temples. It feels as though it's floating among the clouds. His mind wandered briefly. I wonder if once I've reached a certain level of cultivation, I'll have a territory of my own. Suddenly, he noticed the faint traces of true energy within Xiaoning and thought her true energy is so weak. It's almost non-existent. How can someone with such minimal essence cultivate? Xiaoning caught him staring and blushed, irritated by what she assumed to be his wandering eyes. Rogue, she snapped. Startled, Li Shulai was confused. What do you mean? He asked. I was just observing your true essence. You've let your imagination run wild for no reason, he explained defensively. Xiaoning's face flushed a deeper shade of red. Don't say such nonsense, she replied, embarrassed. Li Shulai, undeterred, pressed on. Your true energy is very weak. I was just curious as to why Ma Xiaoning were college students. You shouldn't focus solely on your personal matters. Think more about how to create value and contribute to the country. Xiaoning shot back. I have no idea what you're talking about. And even if you are observing my true essence, don't look at it. Yes, my energy is weak. I'm not suited for cultivation like you. Watching. Exchange. The old man smiled inwardly. My granddaughter won't be alone forever. Young love isn't so different from my own time. Li Shulai, still deep in thought, remarked, Your energy doesn't seem weak. It looks like it's blocked by something. But I'm not entirely sure. Just treat it as idle speculation. Xiaoning, taken aback, replied, No one has ever told me that before. Not even my grandmother. Li Shulai responded with a touch of uncertainty. I could be wrong. My level of cultivation isn't that high yet, so I might have made a mistake. The old man, observing them, mused. Despite their differences, perhaps they'll grow closer. After all, even enemies can become family. Meanwhile, Li Shulai noticed a group of cultivators gathering in front of them. They had come for the same event. This is truly a grand gathering of the cultivation world, he thought, impressed. I never expected such a small city like Hangzhou to attract so many talented cultivators. I wonder if other cities host events like this. Everyone here seems ordinary, but they're clearly exceptional. His gaze landed on one person in particular, a postman who dashed across the field at an incredible speed, leaving Li Shulai speechless. That young man's true energy is remarkable, he thought. With such ability, he could probably deliver hundreds of parcels in a day. He could easily earn more than 1 million in 3 years at that rate. The old man approached Li Shulai and said, "Come along, my friend. Let's meet the senior sister first, and then I'll introduce you to some people and show you around the temple." With that, the old man led Li Shulai to the Lanhuan pavilion. Entering the building, he called out loudly, "Senior sister, I brought Xiaoning and her boyfriend." Xiaoning, both angry and embarrassed, exclaimed, "Grandpa, stop talking nonsense." Li Shulai, also feeling slightly embarrassed, thought to himself, how can this old man still be so mischievous? Maybe Zhang Kaoyang has his reasons. Masters often have secret techniques that they don't pass on to outsiders. Nepotism might be at play here, but for now it's best not to call attention to it. Xiaoning, still flustered, noticed that Li Shulai hadn't refuted her grandfather's words. Why didn't he deny it? Is he actually happy with this title in his heart? Meanwhile, Li Shulai mused, "In the past, Ma Xiaoning would have ridiculed me, calling me a toad trying to eat swan meat. But now, seeing her angry yet unable to speak out, it's quite amusing." Just then, a small blue bottle appeared before Li Shulai, and from it emerged a stunning woman. Lin Shuhuan, the master of Qingyan Temple, both Xiaoning and her grandfather, immediately greeted her with respect. Li Shulai, shocked at the sight, thought, "Isn't she Zhang Kaoyang's senior sister? And isn't she Ma Xiaoning's grandmother?" "God, Grandma, young Grandma." Lin Shuhuan smiled warmly and said, "This is your home. There's no need to be so formal every time." The old man, feeling slightly embarrassed, agreed. "Senior sister is right." Lin Shuhuan placed her hand gently on the old man's head and said with a teasing smile, "Our little Chao Yang seems to have grown younger recently. It appears your cultivation has made great progress." The old man, flustered, responded, "It's all thanks to the elixir you gave me a few days ago, senior sister." Li Shulai, observing the interaction, was stunned. A girl who looks around my age is calling this old man little Chao Yang. But then he recalled something from his readings. Online articles always mention that the higher one's cultivation level, the older they become. I just lost my composure. I must have looked so unrefined. Lin Shuhuan continued. "If you encounter any difficulties, be sure to let your senior sister know." Old man Chao Yang playfully leaned his head on her shoulder, saying, "Everything's fine. If I run into any trouble, you'll be the first person I turn to." Li Shulai, witnessing the scene, thought, "It's incredible how someone so dignified can become so clingy in an instant. Even though I understand that everyone here practices cultivation, seeing this in person still feels strange." Lin Shuhuan finally turned her attention to Li Shulai, asking, "So is this young man truly Xiaoning's boyfriend?" She observed him closely, thinking, the true energy within him is quite pure. Perhaps he could help Xiaoning with her cultivation problem. Xiaoning, clearly uncomfortable, quickly explained, "Grandma, he's not my boyfriend. Grandpa just said that. We're only classmates." Frustrated, Lin Shuhuan turned to the old man, asking, "If he is not Xiaoning's boyfriend, why did you bring him here to meet me?" Old man Chouyang, suddenly nervous, tried to explain to Lin Shuhuan, "I just thought he had good aptitude and strong character. He seemed like a suitable candidate, so I wanted him to become your disciple." Upon hearing this, Lin Shuhuan glanced at Li Shulai and quickly realized that his true energy was remarkably pure, upright, and awe-inspiring. However, she turned to old man Cao Hang and said, "No rush. Let's head to the banquet hall first and meet the other practitioners." Old man Cao Hang understood exactly what his senior sister meant. He approached Li Shulai with a big smile, congratulating him. Confused, Li Shulai wondered why the old man looked so pleased. Old man Cao Hang leaned in and said, "If my senior sister wasn't satisfied with you, she would have rejected you on the spot. Since she hasn't, well, you can consider that a good sign, but be ready. Senior sister may have a small test for you." He then laughed heartily and shouted, "Come along, my future nephew." Moments later, they arrived at the banquet hall, filled with people laughing and conversing. However, when Lin Shuhuan entered the room, everyone fell silent, bowing their heads respectfully. Some called her grandma, others, senior sister, lord of Lanhuan Pavilion, or simply master. Lin Shuhuan smiled and said, "Please, everyone, take a seat." After a brief pause, she continued, "Another year has passed, and I trust everyone's cultivation has improved. I'm sure you've all noticed that over the past few months, The spiritual energy in the earth has become more concentrated than before. This is a significant change, one that only happens once in a century. We must guard against arrogance and impatience, remain diligent, and seize this rare opportunity to advance our cultivation. Li Suilai, listening intently, thought to himself, I wonder if the increase in spiritual energy has anything to do with my rebirth. The timing seems too coincidental. Lin Shuhuan then addressed the crowd, saying, as is tradition, we will hold a small event this year. The winner will receive a magic weapon from Longhuan Pavilion. Excitement rippled through the crowd. Someone exclaimed, the magic weapon sent by Longhuan Pavilion last year was a remarkable flying device. With it, you could travel thousands of miles a day, faster and more stable than any airplane. I wonder who will win this year. Another person chimed in, it's definitely coming home with me. Yet another enthusiastically claimed, I'm taking the top spot this time. Old Man Chow smiled, looking around the room, and then confidently announced, the one who's going to win this year is standing right next to me. The room buzzed with excitement, with people murmuring, this young man was recommended by the master of Longhuan Pavilion. He must be a genius. One person added, his true essence is as pure as fire. I've never seen anything like it. However, someone else reminded the group, the event changes every year. It's not always a martial arts competition. It might have nothing to do with genuine. Li Shulai, feeling the pressure, clenched his teeth nervously and whispered to Old Man Chow, I'm just a beginner. I haven't even mastered any real skills yet. Old Man Chow patted his shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry too much. These conferences are mostly for fun and entertainment, but inwardly he knew the truth. This may very well be the test my senior sister has in store for him. Li Shulai sighed and said, I'll trust you on this. Meanwhile, Shaoning, overhearing their conversation, grew irritated. You call my grandfather uncle. So what should I call you? She fumed silently. Old Man Chow, noticing her expression, chuckled and said to Li Shulai, relax. It's simple and you'll understand in a moment. A short while later, Old Man Chow led both Li Shulai and Shaoning to the other side of Longhuan Pavilion, where the competition would be held. As they arrived, Li Shulai was stunned by the sight before him. This is a practitioner conference, he thought incredulously. He saw cultivators flying on swords, others practicing advanced magical techniques, and the sheer scale of it all left him speechless. Shouldn't there be some kind of structured fighting competition? Suddenly, an announcement echoed through the hall. This year the event is cooking. Li Shulai blinked in disbelief. He then watched as many of the attendees prepared to showcase their culinary skills in hopes of impressing Lin Shulai. Huan, the lord of Longhuan Pavilion, upon observing the scene, Li Shulai thought to himself, are all the activities in this cultivation world so simple and straightforward? No one seems surprised except for me, which makes me look rather inexperienced. Xiaoning, noticing his expression, asked, are you disappointed? The path of cultivation is long and often monotonous, and we can't gather just to discuss ancient texts every time. My grandmother believes in balancing work and rest. That's why she organizes this annual event, an opportunity to relax and connect with others. Her lifelong hobby is food, so whoever can impress her with their cooking will win. She then asked, have you decided what dish you're going to make? Li Shulai shook his head. I haven't decided yet. Xiaoning gave him a few suggestions, saying, it's rather hot and humid today, and I don't have much of an appetite. And maybe something spicy would whet her appetite. Dishes like shredded chicken, spicy chicken, cold rabbit, or mapo tofu seem like good options. She looked at him, hoping he would catch the hint. Oh, by the way, my grandmother's wife is from Sichuan, so maybe she'll miss the flavors of her hometown. But well, I didn't say anything. Seeing Xiaoning worry and drop so many hints, Li Shulai thought, Ma Xiaoning, you actually seem concerned about me. How strangely cute. Fortunately, Li Shulai had long honed his cooking skills. In his previous life, his girlfriend often demanded he make various dishes for her. Honey, I want golden garlic pork ribs. Honey, how about French garlic lamb chops? Oh, I'm craving tonkotsu ramen, and I want you to make it from scratch, starting with the dough. She would always sweet-talk him, making him whip up all kinds of meals to satisfy her picky taste. Because of her, Li Shulai had worked hard to master his culinary skills, becoming proficient in the 8 major Chinese cuisines, including Sichuan, Cantonese, and Fujian styles, and even dabbling in French and Italian cooking. In the end, a man who tries to please others may not always succeed in relationships, but at least he walks away with useful skills. As Li Shulai stood in front of the cooking table, deep in thought, Lin Shuhuan noticed him and smiled. But he's just standing there, not doing anything. Old Man Chow, watching from the side, couldn't help but mutter, this kid, what are you standing around for? Don't tell me you can't cook. Was I just boasting for nothing? He began to feel a bit embarrassed, but Lin Shuhuan calmly said, don't worry, there's no need to rush. She glanced at Old Man Chow and added, even at your age, you're still so impatient. Cooking is like cultivation. You can't hurry it. Just like when preparing fresh seafood, you need patience. Li Shulai slowly opened his eyes and thought, what should I make? As he surveyed the ingredients available, a great idea struck him. There are so many specialties here. I'll create something truly impressive. Sometime later, after everyone had completed their preparations, the majority had crafted their dishes for presentation. Li Shulai, too, prepared his offering, exuding confidence and satisfaction with his creation. However, it wasn't just one dish. He had prepared in abundance, filling an entire table. The sheer quantity left everyone in the room surprised. Despite their astonishment, their expressions soon shifted to disapproval. Quantity alone does not determine quality, someone remarked coldly. Does he truly expect the pavilion master to taste every single dish? Others murmured in agreement. Our leader is known for being extremely particular. Who invited this young man? Another voice inquired. His cultivation may not be advanced, but his mind seems to overflow with ideas. At that moment, an elderly man dressed in blue robes approached Li Shulai. With a stern expression, he said, "Young man, you are unfamiliar here. Being unconventional will not earn you any favor. It may even breed contempt." Unperturbed, Li Shulai calmly responded, "The final judgment lies with the pavilion master. If my food does not meet the standard, I will return to continue my practice." His unwavering confidence irritated many onlookers. One of them snapped, "Do you even know if what you've cooked is any good? The finest ingredients require only the simplest preparation. The food grown in Qingfeng Temple's spiritual fields is nurtured by spiritual energy. You're wasting precious resources. Why hasn't anyone removed him yet?" Several others echoed the sentiment. Exactly. High-quality ingredients need only basic cooking. Meanwhile, from a higher vantage point, Lin Shuwan and Old Man Chao observed the scene, watching his senior sister's subtle reactions. Old Man Chao thought, although senior sister maintains an air of maturity and composure in public, her true thoughts are difficult to discern. But her gesture just now, tapping the armrest, reveals that she too is the young man is remarkably composed and perceptive. If I had been in his position, I might have reacted with far less restraint. Let's hope our Xiaoning recognizes this opportunity. Shortly thereafter, the tasting session commenced. A group of young women approached Li Shulai's table, carefully selecting portions of his food and delivering them to the judges. As the judges sampled the dishes, they were visibly taken aback. The flavors were so exquisite that tears began to form in their eyes, and they could not resist taking more. Observing their reactions, Li Shulai felt a sense of satisfaction. It seems the judges are thoroughly enjoying it, he thought, now eagerly anticipating the pavilion master's final judgment. Pavilion master Lin Shuhuan approached the table where all the dishes were displayed. The first dish served to her was Song Sao's fish soup. As she tasted it, she found it better than expected, though it still did not meet her high standards and was quickly eliminated. The fifth dish was chopped pepperfish head. After taking a bite, she liked this dish more than the previous one. Li Shulai, observing Lin Shuhan's expression, thought to himself, it looks promising from her reaction. When she reached the 10th dish, Mao Chu Wang, she had already tried numerous plates. Everyone grew excited as they anticipated her reaction to Li Shulai's dish. The 12th dish was mapo tofu. Upon seeing it, Lin Shuhuan was genuinely surprised. Mapo tofu, she thought, this is my favorite. As she took a bite, she was shocked. This mapo tofu, she marveled, the perfect level of spiciness, the smooth and tender texture. So good I could eat it with 10 bowls of rice. Her expression became visibly warm and pleased after just one bite. She turned to Li Shulai and asked, "What did you add to this dish?" Li Shulai with confidence replied, "I added sincerity." Then, with a hint of nostalgia, he revealed, "In my previous life, I always made at least 5 dishes and 1 soup for dinner. It's truly made with sincerity, the sincerity of someone devoted to their craft." Despite this, others in the room were displeased. He should be eliminated, one person argued. Quantity doesn't matter, and the pavilion master only took a single bite. Another laughed, saying, "Looks like we don't even need to try the rest." However, pavilion master Lin Shuhuan cut them off, instructing her maid, "Give Li Shulai the magic weapon and the cultivation book from the top shelf of my library." The entire room was stunned. "What? The results have been announced before we've even finished tasting the dishes." Someone exclaimed. "You don't understand," he said with admiration. "In all my 60 years of studying cuisine, I have never seen such a fine delicacy. I've dedicated my life to cooking, and yet this young man has surpassed me effortlessly." He turned to the crowd, adding, "Even if his cultivation hasn't progressed much, his cooking skills far exceed those of anyone I've seen. Even those who have just started their culinary journey, he completed dozens of dishes in the time it takes others to make just one. Is he even human?" With that, the elderly chef approached Li Shulai, kneeling before him and pleading, "Please, Will you accept me as your apprentice? Surprised, Li Shulai hesitated, unsure of what to do. As the evening came to a close and the cultural festival drew to an end, people began returning to their duties. Nata Pavilion Master Lin Shuhuan, however, invited Li Shulai and the others to her home. Once there, she turned to Li Shulai and said, "I want you to cook something for us." She then declared, "From today onward, you are my apprentice." Li Shulai was shocked upon hearing this. Shouldn't there be a formal apprenticeship ceremony? What he wondered, is it really that simple? Can you become a master just by recognizing someone from the stove? Noticing his confusion, Lin Shuhuan asked, "What's the matter? Do you think becoming a disciple is too simple?" Embarrassed, Li Shulai replied, "Well, just a little." With a soft laugh, Lin Shuhuan said, "It's the 21st century. Don't be so rigid in your thinking." With that, she left. Later, at the dining table, Lin Shuhuan instructed, "When you return, practice on your own according to the scriptures. If you have any questions, ask your uncle Cho Wayang or write them down. You'll need to come to Qingyun Temple once a week for training. I'll let you know the specifics later." She also told Xiaoning you should come along as well. "Master will help you resolve your cultivation issues." Xiaoning thanked her grandmother with a big smile on her face, saying, after that, both Li Shulai and Xiaoning walked back together to their university dorms. Xiaoning glanced back at Li Shulai and said, "I noticed you've been staring at me the entire way. What's on your mind?" Surprised, Li Shulai thought, "Does she have eyes on the back of her head?" Confidently, he replied, "Nothing," adding with a teasing grin, "From now on, I'll be more tolerant toward younger people." He playfully teased her. "Come on, don't dawdle. Do you hear me, my little niece?" Xiaoning processed what he had said and immediately got angry, snapping, "Li Shulai, are you taking advantage of me?" The next morning, Li Shulai went to Professor Guo's office to present his new graduation thesis. Upon reviewing it, Professor Guo remarked, "This thesis is excellent. The structure is clear. The arguments are well presented. The data analysis is solid and convincing. Well done, Shulai. I'm very optimistic about your future." Li Shulai, with a smile, replied, "Mr. Guo, your praise is a bit too direct." Professor Guo, smiling, continued, "Let's discuss a few minor points. The paper could benefit from a bit more elaboration on certain key concepts." As they discussed some minor adjustments, suddenly a woman in a suit entered the office. She addressed Professor Guo, "Please come to the Academic Affairs office." Professor Guo turned to Li Shulai and said, "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. I need to attend to something first." As Li Shulai watched Professor Guo leave, he had a strange feeling, thinking to himself, "It's happening." When Professor Guo stepped out of his office, he noticed Zhang Shuili standing nearby. However, he paid her no attention and walked past her, ignoring her completely. Furious, Zhang Shuili muttered under her breath, "How dare this old man try to compete with me? If he doesn't let me graduate, I'll make his life miserable too." Meanwhile, Li Shulai also exited the office. Zhang Shuili spotted him and thought, "Li Shulai, look at how unlucky your favorite teacher is now. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Now later that day, back at the boys' dormitory, Zhang Ming noticed that Li Shulai seemed to be in a bad mood. Concerned, he asked, "Shulai, what's going on? Didn't your thesis pass? You look serious." Li Shulai shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm just thinking about something else." Zhang Ming, being his best friend, patted his shoulder and said, "Don't stress too much. If there's anything you need help with, let me know." Li Shulai playfully punched Zhang Ming on the head and joked, "You should be paying more attention to your own thesis." Zhang Ming sighed, "I'm already desperate about that thesis. Forget it, I'd rather take a nap." Li Shulai smirked and warned, "Be careful or you might not graduate." But deep down, his thoughts turned darker. Mr. Guo's punishment is coming soon. Before the disciplinary notice is issued, I need to put my plan into action. The evidence I've gathered over time will finally come to light. Later that evening in the university office, campus investigators arrived with Zhang Shuili to conduct an investigation into a serious matter involving Professor Guo. Mr. Guo, surprised and confused, wondered what was happening as he saw Zhang Shuili crying in front of the campus investigator. The investigator, maintaining a serious tone, addressed him, "Mr. Guo Qiang, a classmate has reported you for abusing your power and attempting to take advantage of her. Please explain what's going on." Mr. Guo slammed his hand on the table and adamantly denied the allegations. Intention of taking advantage of her. "I, Guo Qiang, have served this institution for many years, and everyone here knows the kind of person I am." Zhang Shuili, with tears streaming down her face, looked at him and said, "Professor Guo, didn't you tell me that my graduation thesis wouldn't pass? Didn't you say that I wouldn't be able to make it through the defense?" Professor Guo, exasperated, responded, "That's because your graduation thesis was fundamentally flawed from the start. And furthermore, more importantly, you didn't even write it yourself. You had someone else revise it for you. Zhang Shuili broke down further in front of the investigators, sobbing, "Dear investigators, do you really think I, an innocent girl, would need to use my innocence to slander someone? How important is innocence to a young woman? Would I throw that away just for a graduation thesis? Just for a defense? I've received numerous scholarships over the years. Why would I resort to something like this?" The female investigator, moved by her tears, comforted Zhang Shuili and began to sympathize with her, thinking to herself, this student is young and beautiful, and her family is well off. There's no reason for her to use such serious accusations to frame an aging man like Mr. Guo. After all, what would she gain by doing so? Professor Guo, clearly frustrated, addressed the investigators firmly. "Please do not make irresponsible remarks based on Zhang Shuili's unfounded claims." However, Zhang Shuili, still crying and positioning herself as the victim, tearfully addressed the investigators. "Dear leaders, listen, Teacher Guo is asking me for evidence. If he truly has nothing to hide, shouldn't he be the one to provide proof? Isn't it up to him to show there are no hidden rules?" Professor Guo, growing angrier, shouted at her, "You slander me and then demand to provide evidence." With an innocent expression, Zhang Shuili responded, "How can I, a student who hasn't even entered society yet, compete with someone like Teacher Guo, who has been part of the system for decades? Besides, I always thought of him as an upright and honorable teacher." Professor Guo, now even more exasperated, retorted, "Zhang Shuili, stop lying. I have a family, a wife and children. I cannot afford to have my reputation destroyed by these false accusations. You claim there are hidden rules, so where is your evidence?" Zhang Shuili told investigators. That day he led her into his office, locked the door, and whispered to her while touching her secretly. "And then, he pulled off my skirt. How could he leave evidence if he was capable of such a filthy act? How could he allow me to leave evidence?" The female investigator interrupted, her voice firm. "That's enough, Zhang Shuili. No more talking." But Zhang Shuili, still sobbing, continued, "He must be a sexual offender. I'm the only one brave enough to stand up." She paused for a moment, then added, "I've heard that the passing rate of students under Teacher Guo is unusually low." The female investigator comforted Zhang Shuili, saying, "Don't worry, the organization will uncover the truth. Just wait for the result." Then, turning to Professor Guo, she added, "Until the investigation is complete, you should stop teaching and take some time to reflect on your actions." Troubled and anxious, Professor Guo felt helpless, unsure of how to prove his innocence. Meanwhile, Zhang Shuili smiled to herself, thinking, "Smelly old man, did you really think you could fight me? My plan has succeeded." Zhang Ming, who had been secretly watching from behind the door, was disgusted. Damn Zhang Shuili, she really played her part well. He quickly ran to find Lai Shuili and exclaimed, "It happened just as you predicted." Zhang Shuili accused Teacher Guo of sexual harassment. "Should we take action now?" Li Shulai smiled knowingly and replied, "The night is dark and windy, perfect for action." At midnight, Li Shulai and Zhang Ming, both dressed in black like thieves, snuck around the campus. They plastered photos of Zhang Shuili with other teachers in compromising positions all over the university, where everyone could easily see them. The next morning, the campus was buzzing with shock. Students and faculty were stunned by what they saw. Zhang Shuili, who had always presented herself as innocent and well-respected, was revealed to be someone entirely different. "We completely misjudged her," many thought. At the same time, in the girls' dormitory, Zhang Shuili woke up, still feeling drowsy. She noticed her friends staring at her with disappointment, creating an awkward atmosphere. Confused, Zhang Shuili asked, "Why are you all looking at me like that? What's going on?" One of her friends nervously replied, "It seems someone posted your pictures all over campus." Hearing this, Zhang Shuili jumped out of bed. "What photos? Where?" she demanded. Her friend showed her the photos, images of her in a relationship with a teacher. Zhang Shuili, shocked, quickly snatched the photo from her friend's hand. Enraged, she tore it into pieces, thinking furiously, "Who did this? Do they have a death wish? I'll make sure they pay for this."